The girl that loved the swastika.
Yes. Welcome everybody to the Comic Book Club. We are reviewing Hanzi, the girl who loved the swastika. And this
Mhm.
week's pick was Alan's. So Alan, take her away, my friend.
Well, actually, it was Lyle's pick in a weird way because I was trying to think of a book that would be a good one, and I was thinking of something else, but he recommended this one. I think this is a good choice. It's a great story. Very simple story actually. But it's Hansi, the girl who loved the swastika. Um, Basically, it's there's not too much commentary in the story. I would have to say, where things. So you just sort of watch this girl's life kind of progress. So it starts off with the Nazis coming into Austria, and they basically bring they basically bring the success of the Nazi party to Austria. And what at the time you got to kind of imagine this is when Germany kind of uh, acquired Austria and they reunified the German people. Um, so at the beginning, things looked very rosy in terms of the situation. The people thought, oh, the Nazis are awesome, they're really great, and they hint at things. They don't actually overtly say, oh, look, they're doing this bad stuff. So what they did is like Hansi is this little girl on the cover, and this is actually almost the first page of the story. The Nazis have come in. They're coming with gifts where they can learn about the Nazi Party, and potentially, if they're really really smart and really really successful, they can become part of the Nazi youth. So immediately, when Hansi is like totally gets, you know, excited by this, and she wants to win that opportunity to become part of the Nazi youth, and she does everything she can to do that, and she becomes a Nazi youth. When she first experiences going to, I think they go to Prague, uh, to um, to basically see this thing. The first place she sees is this beautiful home, and she's like, "Wow, this is so
You know,
amazing!
you
This is
should
so great."
probably point out that she's Sudeten German, so she wasn't a German. She was one of the ones they took in later from Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, yeah.
So that might be why she's a little
Oh, it's
more.
Czechoslovakia that they rolled into.
Yes.
Sorry, you're right. Okay. The Sudetenland.
Yeah.
Sudetenland, yeah. Um, so okay, so not Austria, but Sudeten land. Um, so yeah, so the point is, she sees this beautiful home, and this is where they're gonna be indoctrinated, basically. uh, and one of the other girls that is there says, "Oh, it used to be a home of a Jew." And so they don't say overtly that we're stealing stuff from the Jews, but that's what they're doing. So a lot of the stuff that happens in the story is kind of like done in that style, where they don't overtly say, "Oh, look, this was stolen from a Jewish person," but they suggest it, and also they show the attitudes are very negative towards the Jewish people. And at first she's a Christian girl, so she's like, well, Jesus was a Jew. And then they're like, oh, but we're going to give you a new religion. We're going to give you a new religion based on science and all this kind of stuff. So this is a story that's written by Christian Spire, right? So it's a very Christian-centered story where they're showing that the dangers of socialism and far left extremist ideologies like Nazism. And so basically, she goes to this thing. She gets embraced, and she embraces the Nazi culture, but she sees things and then never really clues in. She never really clues in. Like, she sees people getting injured. She sees people like
Alan's freezing.
literally dying. She sees people like their rations are getting less and less. Am I freezing?
You were freezing for a bit, so
Am I okay?
now yes.
Okay, so yeah, so she sees that like they say, oh, our rations are getting cut. She sees people getting injured, and she's like, don't worry, it's not about us. It's about the Nazi movement, and that's greater than we are. That's bigger than us. But she doesn't. So she sees all these things happening, but she doesn't clue in because she's so indoctrinated that she doesn't realize how giving up
Oh, there you
religion,
go.
giving up one sense of humanity, I guess, has really like rotted the German people. And so eventually she hears that Hitler has been, has killed himself, and she hears that the Russians are moving in. And the Russians are another socialist kind of like, totalitarian state. And
And
they're not,
anti-God.
they're very
Yeah.
brutal to the Germans. They're anti-God, they're anti-German as well. And she hears the stories that and this is true, that the Russians actually killed a lot of Germans when they took over.
She had a boyfriend.
So
Did she get married or not?
yeah, okay, so so okay, that's another sub story. She has a boyfriend.
Yeah.
Her boyfriend really loves her, and her boyfriend's sister really loves her. She really embraces her. But the parents don't like,
No,
because
they
she's
see
coming
her
from
as the small little servant girl.
well, they see
Yeah.
her as coming from a poor family, and
Yeah.
his family is wealthy. So so she kind of realizes that she doesn't want to come in between him and his parents. That's kind of a good Christian thing to do. So she kind of rejects him. She even returns his engagement ring. But despite all that, he goes off and he's like in the submarines or something like that, and they think he's dead.
Mhm.
But she reconnects with the sister, and the sister is like, oh, you're the only thing that we have left to remember the brother by, and all this kind of stuff. And they lost everything because when the Russians came, they lost everything. Now the Russians, they actually even say, like, there's a lot of history that happens where it's all suggestive. They talk about, there's a scene where they show that the Russians, like, not many people know about this, but the Russians raped 2
Yeah.
million Germans after they took over. It's sort of brutal stuff. They kind of said that they were kind of suggestive of it happening in
Mhm.
this, and they said, oh, just because she was too skinny, therefore they didn't like her, and
They
therefore she was
wouldn't have
able to
left her
avoid it.
alone.
What?
They wouldn't have left her alone. This is to
No,
make the
no.
hero.
But this
Yeah.
is actually based on a true story, believe it or
I
not.
get it, but I think she doesn't want to.
I don't
She's
think she
glossing
wants
over
to
that
have
part.
that
Yeah.
known about her history.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of brutal, but the way that they play it is they just tell it like, like it's a story.
Yeah.
This thing happens, this thing happens, and eventually she tries to escape the Russian side of Eastern Europe,
Yeah.
and
She's
she
obviously on.
escapes
Yeah.
to Germany, and she has to go against the no man's land, which is the area where um, there was, like, Germany had been split into two halves by that point, and you had to cross this field in order to get into the western half. If you could cross that field, you were safe in the West Germany, and you were free from the Russians. So she had to get over there, and as she's going over there, she's dealing with where there's Russians that are following them and potentially, shooting them down if they get caught. She sees like a mother with a daughter, and the mother gets killed, and she basically helps this daughter get to safety. So once she gets there, she experiences the Americans, who are liberators. Actually, the Americans were very good. They, but she's paranoid. She's like, oh, they offer her like a room to stay, and she's like, oh, so now you're gonna rape me, kind of thing. It's like, that kind of, fear that she has. But no, they're like, no, 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 you just stay here. You'll be okay. And they give her food and they treat her really well. Um, so so the thing is, like, it just shows the difference between America and Russia. It is a propaganda story, right? Okay, so um, and then eventually she reconnects with her long lost love. They get married and they actually go to America. And at first, when she hears them pledging the oath, they actually go through the oath. And the Americans take, where they say we pledge our allegiance to the, blah blah blah. And then the very end of the oath is we play our country under God. And when she hears that under God part, she realizes that America is a good place because it puts God first rather than putting man first. And that was the mistake that both the Russians and the Germans had, that they were all about, you know, getting rid of God. And so she takes a very religious thing. Her and her husband start taking in people and teaching them about the Bible and basically helping people learn about God. And that's really the story. It's obviously written by a company, so you're gonna have a very religious message. But it's an interesting story because of the fact that it really goes through all of those historical events, but it does it in a way where it's not heavy hand. Like nowadays, if you thing you some emotional thing pro or against whatever thing happened historically. Well, in this they don't do that. It's really just this happens, and they let it to the reader to really just form their own opinion, which is interesting. It's actually a very hard thing to do, and where you see these atrocities happening, and they don't try to say, this is how you have to feel. It's very very hard thing to play, and that's what makes it a very interesting read. um, so I'm gonna go through it.
Yeah.
Very important book.
You froze again. You froze again.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you're all right. You're at the cover. You're at the cover for it.
Am I frozen?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys my scores and a little bit about how I feel about the book.
Mm-hmm.
Now, personally, I kind of wish they were a little bit more detailed in the storytelling in a way. I wish that they kind of really did break down a little bit more about her psychology, about how she changed. They did show that progression where she went from being like totally indoctrinated in order to, and then to becoming born again, almost religious way. Um, but I felt like there was a little bit of like, missing there. Um, my scores would be the following. I love the cover. I think the cover is just so crazy and cool. Um, I actually give the cover like a really high marks because it's just so iconic cover and it's such a crazy title that it's really engaging. So I actually give the cover a 5. I really love the cover.
Okay.
I really love this cover. It's just so over the top because there's such a contrast between this. You got this cute girl. I mean, just cute, innocent, lovely girl, and then you got this crazy Nazi stuff that is just the opposite. It's like the polar opposite. And she's like so embracing of it. And you almost, when you see this book, you think, oh, it's going to be some evil Nazi propaganda book, right? But really, it's the total opposite of that. It's really showing the dangers of ideologues and of like these kind of bad philosophies. So just a really great cover, in my opinion. I really do like it. So that I give the cover a 5. The interior art is okay. I would say it's a 3.5. I think it's quite strong. It carries through fairly well. Um, even they even capture some of that, as I said, where they never overtly say like this person's anti-Jew. They just kind of show their facial expression, and it really does kind of resonate. And they show like different things where they hint at things. Like, again, it's never overt. They just hint at stuff, and I think that's really well done. So I give the interior art a 3.5. Now the storytelling, I'm going to be a little bit harsher on. I'm going to give it like a 3, because I do feel like there were some opportunities that they missed that they could have. But I know that there's so little room in a comic. Almost they needed to be like 2 or 3 issues to really build up the story. I kind of would have almost liked to have seen that where it was built up a bit more. But yeah, so that's a 3 for me. Overall, because it is such an important book, I give it a 4 overall. It's greater than the sum of its parts, I would say.
Okay.
So yeah, okay, that's my scores.
So who you got next?
Let's go with Matt.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Very well done.
Okay.
Okay, well, from a historical perspective, the 2 parts of the story that mean, like, if you are a student of history,
Mhm.
you have to realize that what the book doesn't mention is she's in East Germany because the Czechs expelled all the German people after
That's
the
right.
war.
Yeah.
And because, like, there's a little bit of confusion, like,
Some of
how
those
is she in
details
Germany?
were kind of not there.
You
That's
know,
what
like,
I'm
that's what
saying.
I'm saying. So, like, why is she in Germany and not still in Czechoslovakia, for example?
Mhm.
Because Czechoslovakia also got to be a democracy again for a few years after the war. So 3 or
Until it was
4
taken
years or
over
something like
again.
that.
Yeah.
And before they were taken over again. Yeah.
Hmm.
The overall, it is a bit of a gloss. I would agree with you, Alan, but honestly, the book is intended for Sunday schools.
Yeah.
So
It's meant to be easy read. It's a very
you
quick
can't
read.
sit there and scare kids. You could only scare kids with hints back then, especially. And a Christian church is not going to go, oh,
It's not going to show rape scenes and stuff.
oh, we killed Jews. Like, they're not gonna
Yeah.
get.
Yeah.
So you have to. I mean, I'm taking this from the point of view of like what they were trying to accomplish with this book. Cover art. I agree with you that it is a very good cover, but because I'm uncomfortable with some of the symbolism,
But now
I can't give it a 5. It's a 4. Okay. That's a personal problem of mine, or you can call it or whatever. But seeing that symbol makes me sick at a lot of times.
Yeah,
I understand the historical. I mean, I do watch a lot of World War II documentaries. Don't get me wrong, especially both sides. But seeing this, it's one thing when you're seeing. Anyway, it matters not. The interior art actually was almost as good as the cover, but good enough that I will give it a 4 as well.
Oh, okay.
Whoever their artist was for both the cover and the interior, Al Hartley. Well, he did a great job.
Here's the funny thing. Like, they actually kind of joke in the book about it, or kind of. There's like a hint. So when she meets the Americans, Al Hartley actually did work for Archie, right? You'll see that the American soldiers are reading an Archie.
Yes, I did see that actually.
Isn't
I thought
that funny? Like, so that they actually kind of hint at that connection.
Mm-hmm.
Is a kind of inside joke.
The only other now let's get to the writing. I've got some things to say about the writing.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's for kids, as I've said, but it was still a little too simple. German's bad, Russians really bad. Obviously, Americans good. Like, there's little gray areas.
As I said, it's a propaganda book.
From the basics of the war, yes, the information is correct. But there's no way, as I said, there's no way she would have been spared. And I'm sorry, but they didn't work. Okay. Now, to be fair, later after the war, they were not doing as much of the nocturnal things because the officers were finally getting a hold on that, saying, we're not going to win the hearts of the people if you keep doing this crap. We want them to be good little commies. So, for lack of a better phrase, I mean, but it seemed, I mean, like, but then again, but it had this. It was similar to that story with that I brought, the Lex Luthor as Superman one, where it's and
Mhm.
then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened.
Yeah,
Bang, bang,
I felt
bang,
it was
bang,
like a
bang.
very and then and
You
then
know,
and then kind of thing.
like
Yeah.
and so like because of that, the story actually loses a lot. They could have done a little less of her wanting to get into this thing and a little more. I mean, for if they wanted to show the conversion process, for example, they could have shown a little less of the beginning part and a little more of what it was about the Bible or whatever it was that made her realize and go home again, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
yes,
mean,
you
there was
get
a
the
bunch of
idea
things
it's
that I
the
didn't
oath,
mention
but
about the Bible. That the soldiers at the front wanted the Bibles and stuff like that. And
yeah.
yeah.
No, I mean, like I get those parts, but
Hmm.
you know, well, face it, when people feel like they're going to die, they like
They
how
want
many
it. Yeah.
people lost themselves on D-Day,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so the writing takes a serious downfall. I give it a 2.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yes. However, the book overall is a 3 because I think they did I mean, the art saves the book, but I also, am a very cynical person with what I call propaganda pieces. It's like whatever.
It is
But
what it is. It's
is it I would say that it was an effective tool for what they wanted to make out of it.
hmm
So those are my scores.
yeah. I mean, that's what I felt. The writing was very simplistic, and you actually nailed it when you said it was meant for kids. It's meant for kids, where you're telling a very gruesome story in a way. Um, the
Who
Second
do
World War is not a pretty, not a pretty situation.
And I'm curious. I am curious if that was true about the soldier coming back. Because I
About her
almost feel like
husband?
yes.
Yeah, I
Because
think it's true.
but I mean, like lost at sea, he would have been a POW if he was rescued.
Yeah, but they did have prisoner release things where they did release
No,
them.
I get that. I'm just saying, but he wouldn't have been released if he wasn't cleared of being a Nazi. So
what?
back then, I just watched a video on all that stuff.
I
All the
know a lot of
soldiers
them.
they
A
made,
lot of the Nazis they killed
yeah.
afterward.
So
Yeah, but the lower rank and file they for the most part let live.
so
Um,
anyway, somebody else can go now.
No, it's your pick. Who would you like?
um
Oh, I thought it was Alan's pick.
okay, let's just do it in order. Let's go with D next.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Very well done.
All right, so the cover, I did not enjoy as much as the previous two commentators. I thought it's meant for some like shock value with all the swastikas there um and the pretty blonde girl in the front. Like I don't know, like it seemed like it was a little too shock value for me. I didn't appreciate it. I give it a 2.5. It's not my worst score for a cover. I think it's like middle of the road. The
If you
art
watch
is
historical documentaries, it's actually pretty accurate.
no, it could be as accurate as it wants. I just didn't enjoy
Mhm.
the cover, so it's a
Yeah,
two and a
yeah, yeah,
half,
yeah,
which
yeah.
means that it's not a terrible cover. I give it a middle of the road. The art
Sure.
does its job very well, but it doesn't. Seeing that cover wouldn't make me want to pick up the book. I would
hmm
be like, "Whoa, swastika book! Fuck, I'm gonna get out of here." Um,
hmm
like, what are you selling here, Kanye West? What the hell? Um,
God.
and so yeah, I'd give it a 2.5 for the cover. The interior art, I'd give it a 3. It's better than average in my opinion. Um, it tells the story like the art does not pull you out of the story in a good way or a bad way. It progresses the story along. Um, there's some
Yeah.
issues, some comic books where you're reading the book and the art is so bad it takes you out of the story and it fucks it up.
You're like,
Um,
yeah.
there are other books where the art is so amazing it lifts the story up higher than where it was, and the art is part of why you love the book so much.
hmm
In this book, the art. has no,
It's more functional.
yeah, it has no failures. It has no cheap spots. It doesn't. It's just decent comic book art for the story. Like, so I give the interior art a 3. Um, the story, I I've never hated a comic book as much reading it as I hated this one. I give it a point 0.5. Um,
Oh, really?
Hansi to me, yeah, Hansi. Like I'll tell you, and I tell this to my wife all the time when we watch movies and TV shows. I cannot get invested in a story if I don't care about the main character. And to me, Hansi seemed like an unapologetically impressionable human being. You could tell her whatever you wanted to tell her, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm down." And
Well,
I just, hey, I'm giving my review here. Hold on.
no,
Like,
I agree with that. That's so true.
okay, yeah, and
Yeah.
and you brought it up, like, how quickly she became indoctrinated into being a Nazi was like, the storytelling of that was poor. Like, it didn't,
Mhm.
like, to make that have like feel and mean something. They needed to delve into how they were able to hook her in. Basically, they hooked her in because they had jobs and books. That was it. And then she won a
Yeah.
contest because she's kind of smart. But she wasn't really that fucking smart, because every time you put a book in front of her, she just believed whatever she was reading and she was fucking down to do it. So,
Hmm.
I literally, the entire time, like, I kept waiting for like a twist, I guess, where like she was gonna like, oh, I hate these Nazis. And she was gonna like get like a Rambo rifle and start like mowing people
And start
down.
fighting them.
Um,
That'd be cool.
and
Hansi,
then
Hansi
like
and the
that,
Fear Bunker.
dude,
Mm.
that's what I thought it was gonna be. Like, I thought it was like meant to be like a slow roll into like a really brutal like massacre like action book, and then like at the end of it, like she's like casually talking with her Nazi husband, like, "Hey, you want to like read this Bible, babe?" And she's like, "I don't know." And I bet you do want
Yeah.
to read it, Hansi. And she's like, "Okay." And then like she's like,
And
"I'm
then
super
she's now
Christian
a
now."
Christian.
Yeah.
She's like so gullible. Yeah. Either way. Yeah.
So
Mm.
um so like the combination of me not caring about her as a character at all because of how poorly she was written and how little detail they put into how she was able to get sucked into being a Nazi and how she was able to completely flip around and be a Christian. None of
Mhm.
those subject matters got any depth whatsoever. Um,
That's why I was saying they really needed that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't care. Like, and I'm a big. God, how do you say you're a fan of World War II? World War II is very interesting to read about, to
Mhm.
watch documentaries about. There's so many tales to tell. Um, so I can appreciate how they dipped their toe into a bunch of different segments from World War II.
Mhm.
Um, but they didn't put enough into any one of those segments to make any of that actually meaningful. Like, if you didn't know that World War II happened and you read this book, you'd be
Mhm.
really fucking confused. And you'd kind of wonder like, what was so bad about these Nazis anyways? Like, and
Yeah.
like,
I.
to me,
That's
that
so
that's an important part of this. Yeah. So,
true. They really
I
didn't
get, I
show the
get,
horrors of the Nazis that well.
yeah, no, they shit on Russians more than the Nazis, and the Russians had a lot of bad part
Yeah.
of World War II.
The Russians killed
Um,
more. Actually, the Russians killed more than the Germans did. So maybe.
yeah,
Yeah, but they
no,
also lost more than the Germans did,
Mm.
people wise. Like,
Yeah.
no, and it, to me, that there's a lot to tell there. And here's the deal: you can't tell all of World War II in a comic book. So
Hmm.
for me, if you attempt to the way they did here, you're missing a lot of things that are important and needed to
Yeah.
be told.
It's hard.
And you're missing a lot of
Hmm.
character development that this Hansi needed in order to be important to me in any way, shape, or form. So,
Shape or form. Yeah.
um, point 0.5, like I've never, like, I was like, I literally was like, hey, where when she gonna bust open the Rambo gun? And, and,
See,
and,
that's the
and
problem with
then,
real life stories. You know, we expect more from people, but in a way, this is kind of real. Like young people, like especially she's from a small town. She sees these Nazis rolling in with just the way you see it on the cover, with all the flags and like gala and like just awesomeness. Like they just look awesome, right? Um, it's very like she was an impressionable, obviously very gullible, impressionable, naive girl, and it just seems like, wow, this is such a awesome thing, and she got smitten by it, and
Yeah.
that's the danger of this kind of ideology, where they can make that kind of impression on people and convince them to do horrific things under like this kind of warped ideology.
Well, and
That's
the
that's
saddest
the
the saddest part for
but
me
it didn't
was
do a good job of explaining that in the book. That's
no.
the problem.
And the saddest part for me is she won this contest to be able to go to Prague, right?
Hmm.
And because she was like the best in her class, and
Yep.
she's fucking like borderline like learning disability for how fucking gullible she is. So
The funny thing is, I've always
dumb
found that the
how dumb
smartest
was her
people do
class?
the dumbest things.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, when I got done reading that book, I'm like, man, her classmates must have been like really,
Must have
really
been really
slow.
dumb.
Like if they had a bigger school, they would have been, her classmates would have been special needs for sure.
It's actually quite accurate because basically all the education system, they taught them how to add, subtract, and how to read, but all they were given to read was Nazi propaganda, and therefore whoever
Yeah.
could quote the Nazi propaganda the most
The best.
was the head of the class.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sadly.
But overall, man, I when I looked at this book and I'm done reading it and I'm just like trying to like digest it and like see how I feel about it. I worry that this book is popular as a collector's item because of the allure of collecting World War II books, swastika books, and by no means am I shitting on people that collect that stuff, because I know really good people that are not Nazis that are just like there's a part of them that wants to collect Hitler books and swastika books. It's interesting to them.
Hmm.
But if that cover was different, if she was holding a Bible and and like there was like war around, like I don't know, I don't think this book would be half of as popular as it is, and as well known as it is. It's that cover is such a shock value
Well,
slap in the
that's why I
face.
said I like the cover, because it is the shock value. It's
Yeah,
that
and
contradiction between this cute girl and this evil that you see behind her.
and
Um,
that's a shock value cover for sure. But I also think it over popularizes a poor book, in my opinion. And so overall, I'm going to give it a 1.5.
okay.
And that's my, and now we'll let Big go.
Yeah, Biggie.
And you are on mute, my friend.
You're on mute.
Yeah, I would not have been the head of the class, by the way. So, all right.
You wouldn't be a good Nazi? Oh my goodness.
I don't think so.
I was joking.
Shit, this book. I, looking at it without seeing that 39-cent thing up there, it seems like a golden age book.
It's certainly drawn like one, and to me, that's part of the appeal.
Yeah, it looks like an older book, first of all, and I appreciated it. See, I love. See, someone complimented our show the other day. They said they like all of our different aspects and views of
Very different views. Yeah.
how we all grade the books and shit like that. Me personally, I want the chat to experience the book, and so I like to show the panels. I don't have the book in hand. None of us really had a raw, but I'm gonna take the time and show everybody what we all seen the cover quite enough. But this is the way I do it. So at the very beginning, she is told you guys are going to get free food and jobs. And she's like, who are these amazing soldiers, man? This is really neat. She should have known about this beforehand. She's like, how old at this point? 10 or 12?
Yeah, she's pretty young, I would say. They
Okay.
don't really. That's one other thing that's not really clear. You don't know how old she is
So
at any given point.
Well,
she goes home.
I would think she's like 12.
Yeah, I would say something
39,
like that.
well, actually, maybe even older slightly, because 39 was when they came into Czechoslovakia, and then 45 she's in East Germany,
Western
but she got engaged at some point in between. So how old was she when she got engaged?
Seemed very young. They made comments about how skinny she was after a lot of stuff happened. So we're just going to ignore how young she was, but that is definitely a hitting point for me during this read. She darts home. She talks to her mom. At this point, poor little Hanzi, not poor, but at the time, all she had was a Bible to read.
Yep.
So whenever the Nazis came and offered jobs and money, they also gave her a book, and she was so excited. She's like, I got another book to read, Mama. I'm going to go to school. I think this is a great idea. And her mom was disappointed. Her mom was like, you got to remember your Christian values. You remember God, you know? So that is a part of the story which follows through at the very end of the story too. At the very beginning, I
wish I had mentioned that. That's a very good point. That her mother is the moral center the whole way through the story. Yeah.
So she won the opportunity to go to school, like they said. She was the head of the class. She's like, I'm going to the thing. This is neat.
And did you notice that everyone looks kind of disappointed when she goes off?
But I was going to say on another point why she gets picked. She's blonde and blue-eyed.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was thinking that she's such a little perfect Aryan.
She's the perfect Aryan girl.
Yeah.
So her mom isn't very happy about this. Actually, her mom's kind of like, I kind of wish you wouldn't go, Hanzi. This ain't the greatest idea.
Because they're not like the older people. Kind of are a little wary of the Nazis, right? They don't really trust.
Well,
they're old enough to know they're not so naive.
Yeah,
you have a generation that saw 20 years before when everybody was ripping each other apart. They wanted to avoid war, and Hitler was pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yeah. Another thing is the reason Hitler created the Nazi youth is he knew that young people are impressionable and malleable, and they would become his troops later on. That was his goal, right? To create, people
Fanatics.
that are 100% brainwashed.
Yeah.
So she should have caught the drift as soon as she went, because there's another point y'all missed. I'm not trying to rub in y'all's face or nothing, but it's pretty important to the book. When she gets to the school, a supervisor, one of the teachers, makes the comment about a Jew. And
I said that.
And Hanzi says, well, Jesus Christ was a Jew.
I actually did say that. I'm not sure if I froze at that point.
I know. Yeah, you must have froze. I didn't hear anybody say that. But so she should have picked up at that point. Like, this isn't a world-loving, very Christian-like place, and she was there was very much pushed towards Hitler. She met the soldier and the boy that she's going to be that's going to be her boyfriend, and she's going to get married to. And you guys made a good point about him being richer than her, and she wasn't quite sure if it was going to work out. This shit's hard to scroll on. He said, it doesn't matter. I love you, Hanzi. You're going to be mine. And at this point, she looks very tiny compared to him. Like, she looks very...
Remember, back in the day, people married at younger ages.
Oh, I didn't know that. Is that a thing?
I imagine
the girls did. I don't know about the boys.
Age gap.
Okay, so
I think there's probably a 4 to 5 year age gap between the two of them.
He tries to get married, and she didn't go for it. And here comes the Germans. They're pushing in, and here comes the boyfriend. He's like, we got to go. And she's like, I can't go. We got to stay for Hitler. We're staying here. And then the news breaks. Hitler poisoned himself. And then she gets captured.
Not poisoned himself. He shot himself.
Oh, he committed suicide, right? Well, I don't know if they said poison or shot himself. I'm not
Yes.
sure.
He unalives.
Just said they said suicide. They didn't.
The official account says that he put a cyanide capsule and pulled the trigger at the same time he hit the thing, he bit into the capsule because he just wasn't sure if one or the
If it
other
would
was going to work.
Yeah.
So the Russian soldiers are taking advantage of the little girls, and the girls are telling Hanzi, "Don't worry, you're too skinny." And I was told, like, if you got this book by cover, you're like, this is going to be horrible. And everybody's like, no, Biggie, don't worry, it's a good story.
There's some horrible things.
This is a fucking horrible story. This is not good. There's not much good in this story. She's brainwashed.
Yep.
She's a lot of molestation, a lot of like I said, brainwash, a lot of control, a lot of horrible things.
Horrible
like, where's the
period.
good? The good is that she believes in God. Okay, cool. Like, I don't know what's good about it, though.
Mhm.
So she's remembering what her mama told her, and she's trying to find a way out of here. And they talked about this. You got to go through the woods, and someone helped her get through the woods. And I believe one of the girls' mothers got shot, and they had to keep her quiet while they were all missing, because if she would have made a noise, they would have all got shot.
They had to keep the daughter quiet. Yeah.
Well, this goes back to the stories about where they had to kill infants or the whole groups would die. Remember, you would read down about Jewish people who were hiding.
Yeah, where they would suffocate the children.
Yeah,
it looks like they paid them quite a bit to get this opportunity to go through them once too, like the No Man's Land, a big bag of gold or whatever they gave him. I don't know.
Yeah, they gave him like all his jewelry and stuff like that. It was crazy.
Tons of gold. Yeah.
Well, the currency was worthless at the time. They hadn't set up the marks. There was no real.
So, they get to the Americans, and this the best part of this comic was the guy reading Archie. I was like, okay, that's cool.
I thought that was funny. That's why I said it's an inside joke because Al Hartley is the artist and he works.
Oh, okay. So they knock there, and before she gets there, she thought of Americans as being a bunch of gum chewing gangsters, which was kind of funny. You know, it was kind of funny. And they were chewing gum whenever she met them, but the gangster part wasn't so true. And like they said, they invited her to spend the night, and she's like, all you soldiers are the same. And they're like, no, we got a bedroom for you. And they gave her a bedroom, and they brought her breakfast in the morning. And Americans were portrayed as saints, pretty much, you know.
But they weren't, like, this is probably fairly accurate. The Americans were very good as liberators in the Second World War. You don't.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that
you don't hear many stories of them.
No, because if you look at things, because obviously most of them are not, probably weren't reported, but the number of rapes on the American side was almost negligible compared to what happened on the Russian side.
Yeah, I mean the Russian side was insane. It was like, you know, they were raping young little girls too. It was horrible.
And the British leaders pushed hard down on that, said, don't even think about it. But the Brits were kind of like, ooh, German girls, rather than, going after it.
So it gets to a point where she's like, she didn't even believe in God after all the stuff that's happened to her. And her boyfriend's like, I went to a Christian university, and no, God does care about us. And they read John, and I think it's 3:16, just says 3, but for God loves you so much that he gave his son Jesus
John's 3:16. Yeah.
Okay, so that you believing in him will not be lost, but will have eternal life. Mm-hmm. And she's like, so it's true. He died for us. And he's like, yes. And then that he lives for us. And then she's like, okay, I love the Bible again. I love God. She goes to America. And then she gets there and she kind of mocks us too. She's like, oh, everything says diet, but everybody's so fat. You know? And like, what is this
sort
about?
Of true, you know?
Yeah.
But it's actually,
you have to think though, it was a culture shock for her because food had been scarce for years.
Scarce.
Yeah. And then she sees this boat getting dragged by a car, and she's like, all the excess,
the luxury,
they got luxury everywhere. They got television, they got radio, they got clothes, they got food.
So, one thing that you have to understand, before the war even started, they were poor, really, really poor they were starving at that time period. That's why when the Germans came in with food and jobs, that was a big deal.
Yeah, because they were discriminated against by the Czechs.
Hmm.
That was one of the reasons why Hitler decided to use that as a subtext to go into
To move in,
Czechoslovakia.
yeah, yeah.
So at the very end, she opens up a home and she brings in orphans, I guess, and then she says, "I found my home, I found my land under God," and all that stuff. So I enjoyed the way it read. It read quick, and I
Really
appreciate.
quick, very quick
Yeah,
read.
I
Yeah.
appreciated that.
I think the important thing is it ended America. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
So for the cover, I will agree this is a recognizable book. She looks kind of like a ditz. It's got a very much like Wizard or what's it called? Wizard of Oz kind of vibe to it.
Dorothy, you mean?
Dorothy? Yes.
Kind of like a Wizard of Oz thing look to her
Yeah,
face.
yeah, maybe.
Now I love Joe Kubert, like war books and shit and war comics and shit. This ain't that. This is some like, I don't like the way it's angled towards children, and I don't like the content that children is reading in this shit. So I'm very much like disgusted by this whole fucking thing. Like, now, can I say that the cover's not effective? The cover's effective. It's very collectible. It's very radical. I'm gonna give it like a 3 for the cover.
Lyle says Pippi Longstocking.
That's what I thought when I first saw it. I thought of Pippi Longstockings. Yeah.
Cover's a 3. The inside art, I'll give it a 2.5. It wasn't bad. It wasn't super good. The story, it was readable and understandable, but like I said, it was gave to children, and I don't like children getting this brain numbing, scary ass stuff. So I'm gonna give it a
real history, by the way. That's the
2. Oh, it terrifies the shit out of children that ain't gonna have to face this shit. Like, this could really give a kid some issues, you know, and then being brought
the
to
funny
this.
thing is, it's actually the kids that are going to face it the most, because this is how, like, propaganda is really targeted. Like, if you look at Cambodia, if you look at all the things, the revolutions that happen, it's usually geared towards children, because children are the easiest to manipulate and basically, get to do.
This could come in handy. It's very trendy these days. Who would have thought in 2025 people would still be talking about swastikas, but there's people selling swastika stuff, and people say Trump's malign and all that shit.
Yeah.
What's his name did the symbol, you know.
You have 11 countries. There are 11 countries in Europe that the swastika is banned. You cannot sell anything with it. You cannot have it. You cannot possess it.
The funny thing is, it's actually in Asia, it's a very common symbol.
But culturally, it's a good notice.
All right, I'm gonna go with a I'm gonna go with a 2 for the story. It was I just like comic books. This one didn't feel like a comic book story to me. And overall, I'm gonna go with a 2.5. 2.5. So we'll all get together and talk about the book now.
Okay, so I personally bought this book for the cover, for that shock value of the cover. And for me, I'm actually amazed by how many details and horrific details that they sort of suggest in this book that most people don't recognize to this day. It's amazing that they actually mentioned the raping of women and some of the horrific things that the Russians did. That is generally been glossed over by history for the most part. It's interesting.
The Russians don't like it because it's
the Russians don't like that part of history,
which is funny because everybody wants to make the Japanese,
Oh, the Japanese are pretty bad too.
Yeah, I know, but they always bring them up. But the Japanese were the enemy. Uncle Joe was our friend then.
Yeah.
So we could.
The Japanese were pretty horrid too. I think a lot of this history was glossed over. I personally would have rather see this book to be 3-parter where they kind of showed her rise to being like a loving the swastika. Part 1 is her loving the swastika. Part 2 is her realizing the horrors of Germany. Part 3 is her escaping the horrors of communism and then finally getting to America. That would have been a good 3-part story. But yeah, it's intended for kids, so it's a very quick, simple story.
You know what? The whole part about the romance thing was like kind of felt like that. Okay, I love you. Bye bye.
Yeah, no.
Like that quick, and then like it's just told.
Yeah. It's
It's nice that she did have a relationship with the sister afterwards, but the way it's like, oh, the parents are dead, so you can get married.
Were the parents dead? I don't think they were dead. I think
That's what she said. That's what she said. The parents didn't
Oh.
survive the war.
Oh, okay. I thought that I misread that then. I always thought they were they lost
so many
everything.
civilians died in the bombings, and
Yeah.
It didn't perform that badly. It got a 46.
46
Okay,
even.
46.
Yeah.
I think my high scores and Matt was kind of
Might have
more
saved it, yeah.
Yeah.
Mine weren't the worst scores. My lowest score was a 2.
That's a 57.5%.
Okay, so
Which still
slightly
puts
above
it in
average.
the it's 7th lowest on our
Seventh
scale.
lowest. I really do think the writing was what pulled this book down. I really think they could, if they just, I think the problem is when we read it as adults, we're kind of expecting more. I really do agree with Dee's assessment of that, where you almost hope that she's going to pull out a bazooka and start taking out Nazis, but we're kind of hoping for something. But it's designed for kids. It's designed to show real historical events, and there's little room for kind of cool storytelling that we would like.
Well, I think the show pulled a little long. I was going to see if we wanted to do some top 100, but it's almost been an hour, so I don't want to hold y'all unless y'all want to do it. But we could wait till Friday.
Who's next? Is it Matt next?
It's Matt. Yeah. What book would you like to do next, Matt?
Well, I've been on the fence about 2 books.
Okay.
I really want to see what happens next in JLA Avengers.
Yeah, do it. God, please do it.
But I also
get it over with sooner.
But I'm also curious because I've never. It's been years since I read the first appearance of Thanos, so I was thinking of going to Iron Man 55. But I think we're going to pick JLA Avengers 3.
Oh, wow.
Do it. I thought he was just going to tease it and not do it.
Okay. Cool.
Let's go with JLA Avengers 3.
And it's a 4-part series, so we'll probably finish it with D on the next, whoever's.
Unless I pick it, but I probably won't.
No. It'll probably end on mine, but yeah, that's Matt.
No, I really enjoyed that book so far, and I want to read it. I was going to read the whole thing to the end, and I thought, let's wait until see what goes on. So I'm going to pick JLA Avengers 3.
Yeah.
How much energy would it take to get to the list, Matt? Is it a lot?
I think it was only like 5 or 6 books left.
We got like 2 to go.
I didn't like our last one. Was 7 Seas 4 or something. We was just like up in the air.
Oh, really? I thought we had that on the list. I thought
that's the other one. It's the one that we didn't like. One of them is on the list. The other one was the one we left with, I think.
Okay, so 7 Seas 4 is the shark cover. That's the one I like.
Okay, what's the other one with the girl with the?
That's the spear. That's
6?
number 6, and that didn't make the list because we said, we already have 4. Let's just.
Okay, all right. Well, we got to think of 100th book.
No, I think we have 100 books, don't we, Matt?
Hang on here. Hang on.
We got 99.
Just a second here. 7C. We had 4 and 6, and both were out.
Well, 4 should be on.
Neither of them got any votes.
No, 4 got votes for me.
Yeah, let's put 4 on the list.
Okay.
How many books do we have on the list now, Matt?
Well, let's see. Let me play with 7 Seas. So let's see here from.
For the time being, let's keep it on the list just until we figure out
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get to the sort.
Yeah.
There we go. Sort largest to smallest. Well, we now have 100 books that are two or more.
Okay. So what
Basically,
we'll do.
everything that the only 2 left that have 2, and I put 7 C's 4 there to put it on the list. Everything below that are 1s.
Okay, so we'll
Okay.
get rid of those.
No, don't get rid of them yet because we gotta go over the 100 and make sure that those are right.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. There was some issues before.
Yeah, just in case that it isn't right, we'll have them ones to remember just in case we want to put them back on. So what I would like to do tonight, if it's okay, is just to go over the 5s again because I think there's a few 5s I can remember that should be on there.
There are 22 5s.
Okay, let's
just read through them and.
Yeah, we'll read through them and see if we.
Action 1.
Okay,
Okay,
that sounds
Action
right.
1, that's a 5, sure.
Amazing Fantasy 15.
Sure.
That's right.
Amazing Spider-Man 129.
Okay.
Sure.
Amazing Spider-Man 50.
Sure.
Amazing Spider-Man 300.
Sure.
Batman 1.
Sure.
Batman 251. Batman 73.
Okay.
Blue
Batman
Beetle
73.
44.
What's Batman 73?
I don't
Oh,
know.
look.
I think it's the cards. I think it was the playing cards.
Oh, it's
No?
it's that one with the fucking Joker belt, I bet.
Oh, hey,
Oh,
hey
Is that
guys,
the
before we
utility
get
belt one? Okay, what were you gonna say?
What is it, dude?
no, before we get too deep into the list, did we fully cover where the book that we just reviewed lands in the ranking?
Yeah,
No.
we did.
We're just
It was
trying to
at the bottom of the
eliminate books
list.
based on votes.
No, he's just asking about the book we reviewed. Yeah, it was 7th from the bottom, D.
Okay.
It's pretty far down. It's
Yeah.
pretty far
So
down.
Batman 73, you can go after that.
Blue Beetle 54.
Yep.
Captain America 100.
Okay,
Catman 28.
that's fine.
Cocaine Comics 3.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Detective 27.
Yep.
Okay.
Fantastic Four 1.
Okay.
Ghost Rider 1.
Okay.
House of Secrets 92.
Yep.
Okay.
Hulk 1.
Okay.
Joker Harley Quinn Uncovered 1.
Okay.
X-Men 50. Avengers 57. Chambers of Chills 19. And Captain America 1. Those were all the 5s.
Okay, I know that we need to put Silver Surfer 4 on. Silver Surfer 4 should be a
Silver Surfer
5-star.
4 should be.
A 5-star.
Yeah, I would say it's a 5-star too.
Yeah, Silver Surfer 4
It's
is a
We have it
5-star.
as a 3. We have it as a 3 at the moment.
We'll put it at 5-star. It should be a 5.
But wait, does D like Silver Surfer 4?
Oh yeah, I love that. I have a copy myself.
Yeah, he likes it.
Okay, so how did it get a 3-star?
It's okay. We'll just give it 5. We know it's a 5.
against it, and Steven, I think, was.
Can we think of any other that would be a 5-star? I think that's about it.
That's a good one. That should be a 5-star.
Okay. Oh, I got one. Phantom Lady. That should be a 5-star. The one.
Yes, it's currently at a 4.
We should make that a 5, dude.
Yeah, I agree. Personally, I agree.
I think that should be a 5, bro.
I think I forgot who was.
What is it? Spirit? What is it? Spirit 7?
No, Phantom Lady 17 is the one.
Phantom Lady 17. What's Spirit? What number is that?
Oh, Spirit 22.
That's probably like a
That is
4-star.
a 3. That is a 3 at the moment.
I'd put that at a 4, almost a 5, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a good chance that the Spirit 22 was talked about when it was just the 3 of us and we were only counting our 3s.
Okay.
That would make
One
sense.
I'm good with that. So we had a good night. Friday night, we're going to go over all 100 and we will get really close to finishing the series. And I appreciate y'all coming on. Now I'm going to go around the horn. Alan, you got anything coming on your channel soon?
Not really. Like just standard stuff for the most part. I'll be starting my new unboxing series next week, which is all Grail books, big books. It's just like
Cool.
a whole bunch of really awesome books. That's next week.
Cool. So, Matt, you got anything coming soon?
I got a video dropping tomorrow morning and be on Alan's channel on Friday night.
Yeah.
Next week on my show on Tuesday, Stevie D is going to be the guest. So
Yeah, go watch Matt's Warmonger versus Judo Man.
I get annihilated.
that has been quite a hit today.
Oh my goodness! Why do people have to watch it when I totally f up?
I don't know what happened. I just seen the end of it.
I wasn't very good. I
Oh.
didn't. I was like a deer in the headlights. What's your name? Why do you ask me these hard questions?
Yeah. I would like to see Alan and Steppo in a name that key battle, but we never got to do that. So maybe someday we'll get there.
Yeah.
But
I'm better at that, believe it or not, than
oh no, I know
questions.
you are.
Math questions are challenging.
Yeah, you're real good at that.
I don't want to give it all away. We have to teach the people as well as have fun.
No, your questions are good, Matt. Actually, I was thinking about it afterwards. I'm like, man, I should have gotten those. I think 2 of them I misheard because I told you I was getting those freezing things happening.
Yeah.
So the one where you said 274, I just
Right.
heard it as like 2, and then I didn't hear. I thought I was thinking the whole time 247.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you could have had me, if you were freezing, you could have had me repeat the question.
I thought, because you talked about it's the most iconic Legion book, right?
Yeah.
So you could catch D-Runk on my channel periodically through the week, and he is a member of Book Club, and he'll be on Collector Club for the top 100. And for me, also Book Club and Collector Club, and you can check out Church, and then Alan and Lyle and Matt and Steppo and the other couple guys, Hayden, Lettuce. Check them out Fridays. Church with Bleecker. You can check out
the way. Hall will not be with us on Friday. He's already told me.
Oh, okay.
He's
By the way,
Valentine's Day.
I actually have a topic that I'm talking about on Saturday that I almost wanted to ask you guys about now, if you're willing.
Okay.
So on Saturday, my video is like, I like to do sometimes commentary videos. So this is a thing that drives me nuts. And it's something that Comic Tom does all the time, where they talk about the census. And they talk about 100 books have been added to the census. And therefore, there's more supply than demand. Right? And
sometimes, yeah.
They always keep on saying that. But the weird thing is that doesn't make sense. Because those 100 books that were just added to the census were actually raw books that people were buying and selling before. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's not that there's more supply. It's just that the supply is now changed from being a raw book to being a graded book.
It's more supply of CGC, right? Where you know what you're getting. That's
well, and I think with what Tom is doing with that is he's saying it's popular enough where people are slabbing them in higher numbers right now.
But if you hear what he says, he always talks it in a negative way, that there's more supply that's available, which is not necessarily true.
He's not always putting it in that light, though. There are times where he is highlighting the fact that, hey, they're adding to the census because this book is hot right now.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I stopped watching Comic Tom was it was always the same books. Like you saw the Wolverine 1 every week, the 300 every week.
But that's the way it is. If you think about it,
I get that.
Those are the most commonly sold books.
I get that, but I'm just like, that was why it's like I could go, but I watch him periodically now, and they're still mostly the same books.
Well, you just got to do what me, Alan, and Dee did, Matt, and just get every key there is. So when the top 10 comes, you're not missing, but maybe 1 or 2. That's how it works.
I think I'm retiring from keys after getting that Mr. Canoe head coming in.
Oh yeah, that's a grail. Okay, it's not just a key; it's a grail. Okay.
Well, I left a message. I left a comment on one of his videos saying you need to check this out, but I don't think he's.
Oh, did you? What's his name?
On Paul
Chato?
Shadow's
Yeah.
on Paul
I
Shadow's
like his stuff
channel.
actually. I like his.
Yeah,
content.
I know. I've
been
liked
following
that
him
guy
since he was
forever.
like 1,000 subs. By the way.
Yeah, I was pretty close to 5 when I started seeing that. In fact, I was like, "Ooh, it's Paul Shadow!"
I
have to
know. I was
follow
like,
him."
wow, this is so crazy. Yeah. And
So
now
shout out,
he's friends with Critical Drinker and stuff.
Oh,
shout
that's
out
cool.
to Comic Journey, Insomniac. Shout outs to K-pop. Shout outs to Beckerman and the Hucklebuck and everybody else in the community. Matt's getting close to another milestone. He's almost at 500. That's really cool. I'm almost to 1,300. I'm about 6 away. So we'll see y'all soon, probably Friday. Adios, amigos. Oh, let me end it. That might help.